Peace, 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 family. It's yours truly, Amar Mari. I am just coming on here real quick to share some information with you. I know I normally have the music and everything going and whatnot. However, I just wanted to just come on here very quickly and to, share some information with you that's not new to some. To others, it may be. I would like to think those who didn't attend a school system in this country, but for those of us who have, it is not anything that isn't uh, already knowledgeable. Okay, so I'm going to be very brief with this subject matter, and I just want to underscore the importance of us knowing our culture and our history. And this is what I want to share very briefly is that when we understand the historicity of our country, okay, and we understand the historicity of this country that we were brought to, we would begin to understand a lot of things that we celebrate doesn't even make sense. Okay. We say happy Independence Day, and the history of Independence Day doesn't have anything to do with the indigenous people of this continent, so-called America, or our people who came from Africa. It has nothing to do with that. You have to check the history of the Revolutionary War. It was about the Europeans fighting each other in regards to independence, the 13 colonies from the British rule back in 1776. And July 2nd on 1776, they pretty much agreed that this would be the day that they would celebrate their independence from the British rule. It had nothing to do with us as a people. We would stop saying our founding fathers. There was no African person or no indigenous person of this continent, so-called called America, that founded this country. A lot of us, we get caught up in emotionalism. Okay, and why did I say our culture? Why do we need to know the history of our culture? Because a lot of titles that we have are not our cultural titles. Okay. When you dig deep into your family, when you dig deep into your bloodline, when you really start digging deep, you'll come to find, okay, that you were not called Black. Okay, some people get so upset about that when you say I'm not Black, but yet we talk about liberation. We talk about we want to be free from the Eurocentric ideologies. Okay. And that is not an historical labeling of ourselves because, first of all, a lot of us, we may come from that continent. Okay, but remember, there's different languages, there's different tongues, okay, things of that nature. Okay. And from my knowledge, from me actually doing field work, and you could go on YouTube, you could see these videos. I have the field work to prove it. What I'm talking about, where I did interviews with some of my brothers that are indigenously from the continent of Africa. None of them in which call themselves Black. None of them. Neither one of them. Neither one of them. My Mwalemu, which is Swahili for teacher, does not call himself that. My good brother from Nigeria, he's Yoruba. He does not call himself that. My good brother from the Igbo people, does not call himself that. My good sister, that Zulu, does not call herself that. None of them call themselves that. None of them. Hear me when I tell you clearly. See, one thing about the field work that I do is me actually talking to the people organically from that continent. I had the videos to prove it. Okay, actually interviewing them. My other brother is Kwame. My brother is Asante like myself. He from the Akan people like him, like myself. And you know what he say? I'm Akan. I'm Asante. I'm Ewe or I'm Fanti. Okay. So the history of your culture is very important because then you begin to understand that linguistically the word negro is a root word that comes from a Spanish word, which is negra. In Hispanic tongue, that means the color black, the color black. According to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you have the right to claim your nationality. Article 15 tells you you have a right for you to claim your nationality. Every last single solitary one of us have a right to claim a nationality. That is not a nationality. Check your history. Go back, dig deep, start finding out about who you are. This is the reason why Kujichagulia is so important. Kujichagulia is a Swahili word, meaning we define ourselves, meaning that we speak for ourselves, we teach ourselves, we educate ourselves. And this is the reason why it's so important, because we go around and we say stuff like that. My founding fathers, none of them were your fathers. None of them were your fathers. How can European people be your founding father? Riddle me that. Okay. And a lot of people say, oh, that's not American. I've heard African people say this, and it's sad. And I'm not beating anybody up. I'm just telling the truth. Okay. This is the reason why we have to look at the history. Look at the history of the word America. Then look at the word itself, America. It has no African origin to it whatsoever. And when the European came over to this continent, what was the name of this continent? Do the historicity check on that. Just because you're born here doesn't mean that's what you are. You got to understand that. You have a right to claim your nationality. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights gives you that. Human rights. We talk about civil rights, but we're talking about human rights. Human rights. What is your human rights? Human rights supersede civil because you should be civil towards another human being. You shouldn't be uncivil towards them because of what their ethnicity is. You shouldn't be uncivil towards them because of what their culture is. So we have to deal with this. We got to deal with the historicity of this. This is not a channel that just teaches just on spiritual things. We're still here in this earth. And as long as we're here in this earth, you're going to have to deal with the things of this earth. And if you don't subscribe to that ideology, then don't eat any food, don't drink any water, and watch what happens to you. You will yield up the spirit. And we will be doing a eulogy for you. Okay, so we still have to deal with the things of this earth, but we have to deal with these things with wisdom. Okay? And it's imperative that we start checking our history on these things, because Juneteenth, why do we celebrate Juneteenth? Because 2 years later, after 1865, after 1863, rather, in 1865, with June the 19th, In 1865, 2 years later, they got the word from, what is it, Major General Gordon Granger, that slavery had ended. Okay, 2 years later. So I want you to check the year of 1776, when they received their independence. They, not us, the Europeans, received their independence from other Europeans. Okay, we were still enslaved. Now you do the math, you do the year check. 1776 all the way to 1863. Really 65. It happened in 1863, but some of us didn't get that word. And that general, according to the story, landed in Galveston, Texas with that word and let everybody know, in that specific geographical location, that our people were free. This is important. We have to start doing our due diligence as it relates to educating ourselves about the history, even this history of this country, how it got its name. Okay, start doing the history check on what presidents signed, I want to say, civil rights acts and signed acts into law that fought against discrimination. Do your history check on that. And I promise you, some people will be in shock of how long it took from all of those presidents all the way up into Lyndon B. Johnson, dealing with the Equal Opportunity Act and dealing with these Equal Employment Act, dealing with all these various discriminatory laws being put in place about us. You began to better understand the reason why a lot of times people like us get on here and start saying the things that we're saying, because it's a wake-up call. A lot of us, we are living in a fairy tale world. Okay, just because we're not being lynched from trees, just because the churches are not being bombed in some cases, okay, doesn't mean that we're not fighting a fight against discrimination. Just because all Caucasian people are not doing it to you doesn't negate the fact that it still does exist. And if I'm lying, then why is people out in the streets doing the riots, and why do we have such an outrage about what happened to George Floyd? And the young brother Ahmaud? And what happened to so many others? Trayvon Martin and Sandra Bland and Emmett Till, and we can go on and on and on and on. So don't think for one moment, because you're spiritual, I have to do this because this is a spiritual program and I have to help some spiritual people out to understand that you're still supposed to fight for justice. Just because you're spiritual doesn't make you exempt from not dealing with the things of this world. We have to deal with these things. We have to face these things. It doesn't go away because you ignore it or you turn off the news. In fact, you'll be lost because you won't even know what's going on. You won't have a clue. You won't have no idea about what's happening in this world. Okay? So, Brother Mar, what does it have to do with the history? I just had to bring you up to date and help you to better understand the reason why these type of messages are necessary. History class is important, but I'm talking about being taught by teachers who are going to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help them. Okay? And not continue for us to regurgitate, okay, what we heard in a racist system that was put in place in order to keep us mentally enslaved. This is the reason why African people think that they're American. This is the reason why an African person will tell you, if you got such a pride with being American, go back to your country, like as if though they're not from Africa. This is the reason why that they will, unfortunately, renounce who they really are because of them being brainwashed. This is the reason why this type of teaching is necessary. Because when you start dealing with history and you start giving them timelines and you start pulling out to them and showing them, you know, what was going on at that time with our ancestors, then it will help them to better understand that just because you live in the suburb, just because you drive a nice car, and just because you have a nice house, and just because you have a white collar job, will never make you a European. Just because you speak their language properly will never make you a European. You are what you are. You need to embrace what you are. And that's the bottom line. And there's nothing for you to be ashamed of, but why are you ashamed? Check the history of that. Check the history of the pride of your culture. Go back and see. Did we have that type of pride before we was enslaved? Huh? Did we see ourselves the way we see ourselves now before we was enslaved? What language did we speak? What was our culture? Because culture consists of your language. How did we treat each other before we was enslaved? Because some of us don't even recognize that we actually practiced cooperative economics before we were enslaved. Some people go all the way. Some people stop at Black Wall Street. No, you got to go check your history about bartering and go check how we lived in antiquity. This is the reason why history is so important, because then you'll better understand that we didn't just start in Black Wall Street. We was doing that before we came to this continent. And we were doing that before the European landed in this land, for those who have indigenous blood of the people of this continent, so-called America, before they came over here. That's nothing new. Family love is nothing new. That's nothing new. We have to get back to what we've been cut off from. And this is the reason why you got to study your history, study the family history. Start digging deep and stop being afraid to face reality and face what's really going on, and deal with your heart and deal with your mind and deal with what's really going on, and free yourself and liberate yourself from the mental incarceration that, unbeknownst to you, you have been incarcerated with. See, this is the reason why they don't want you to hear this type of teaching, because it'll liberate you. They want you to continue on going on like you one of them, thinking that you one of them. Why do you think you talk English? Huh? Why do you think so many of us, we judge and criticize one another about not speaking English properly? Like as if though it's our language. I'm not saying you got to sound like, you know, you don't have no type of education, but think about it. Even the way we do business, even the way we do things. I want you to think about the history of the stock market. I want you to think about the history even of currency. Who faces on these dollars? Is it ours? Who face on this money? Who started the stock market? Who set up these education systems? Who set up this economy? Peace and blessings, brother. Peace, love, and power to you, brother. So Tech, appreciate you, man. So family, I just putting this out. Like I said, I was going to be before you long. This is just some thought-provoking things that I'm saying to you, because unfortunately, our own people run away from the truth. We run away from the truth. We don't run to the truth. So many people say they want the truth, but if the truth hurts, say ouch, because I'm going to tell it the way it is. And I'm only going to tell you this because I love you. That's the only reason, because I love you, and love wants to see you awaken. Love wants to see your conscience free. Love wants to see you to love yourself. See, self-love doesn't stop with looking at the person in the mirror. Self-love is loving ourselves collectively. Because see, once we get back to that, then we'll start making our brother, sister problem our problem, and we'll start solving them together. Then we'll understand how important Kuji Chagali is. We understand how important it is for us to educate ourselves. We will understand the importance of African studies. We'll understand the importance of that. And we'll stop thinking because we claim a religion that we can't claim our culture. Huh? Where did you get that from? Who taught you that? Who taught you that having pride as an African is a sin? Where did that lie come from? Who taught you being spiritual that you don't address these type of issues? Where does that lie come from? Because the last time I checked, anybody I know that's organic from the motherland teach cultural pride. See, we got the wrong people talking to us. We got the wrong people teaching us. And just because a teacher step in front of you and they look like you, guess what? That's nothing to celebrate unless they're going to teach you the truth. Let us talk about it today. We celebrate when a politician get in power that look like us. We celebrate that. We celebrate when we see teachers. But here's my question. What are they doing once they get in position? What are they teaching you? Are they teaching you the same lies that you heard when you were in school? Are they teaching our children those same lies? We say we need African teachers, but what's the purpose of having a teacher in a position that look like us when they teaching us the same lies as the enemy? What is the purpose of having somebody in a position of political power when they're going to continue to push racist power? That's my question. Our history is learning about people like Ya Santiwa. Our history is learning about people like Thomas Sankara and Julius Nyerere. All of us know about Harriet Tubman. And some of us just found out about Madam C.J. Walker. And I will continue to say this. We know about George Washington, but some of us don't know about George Washington Carver. We know about Benjamin Franklin, but some of us don't even know about Benjamin Banneker. Why is that? Why is it that we know more about someone else than we know about ourselves? And me, I'm just bold enough to step out and shake some bushes. I'm not worried about it. Because if my ancestors was worried about it, I wouldn't have the minuscule liberties that I have today, if you want to even call it that. If my ancestors was sitting over in a corner and shook and afraid, Shaka Zulu, they would have never beat the Europeans who was trying to colonize them. If Thomas Sankara never stood up, it would never be called Burkina Faso. It'll still be Upper Volta. If Julius Nyerere would have never fought the way he'd have fought, Tanzania would still be in the same condition. So my question is, who's going to stand up and teach us the real history? Or will we still continue to be afraid and continue to look for a high five and kudos from the people who who oppress you. And just like our ancestors, if you did what they said, then you was considered to be a good nigga. How long we would continue to walk around with this house Negro syndrome? Yeah, boss, like the Honorable Malcolm X said, peace and blessings be upon. We sick? Our founding fathers. That lets you know we sick right there. And then when you speak out against these things, the brainwashed indigenous people of this earth, you understand, will lash out at you and attack you. Why is that? You know why? Because we have a mental sickness. We're sick from being brainwashed. When you're afraid to speak out against injustice, when you're afraid to lose a European friend, when you're afraid to lose followers, when you're afraid to lose a job, when you're afraid to stop getting economical support, then you have a mental illness, brother and sister and elder alike, and young people under the sound of my voice, that you need to be healed from, that you need to be set free from. There's a sickness that you're dealing with because you hate yourself. You want a pat on the back more from them than you want your own people championing you and loving you and appreciate you and accepting you and praising you for laying down your life like we do for the Honorable Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and we honor Harriet Tubman and Rosa Parks, Coretta Scott King and Betty Shabazz, and so many others that we celebrate, that we champion and you know, we celebrate their heroism. But you know what I noticed? It's amazing to me that the same people who celebrate that are afraid to stand up and say something. Not paying attention to the fact that the minuscule liberties that you have today is because of somebody being a stand-up guy or woman, not a sit-down guy or woman. And as long as we continue to sit down, we'll continue to be down. And we'll never go up. Our people will never rise if we continue to sit down and be quiet and try to be friends with everybody. Try to be friends with the white collar indigenous people of our people. Try to be friends with the white collar European people. Try to be friends so we won't get banned on social media. Well, if they believe in freedom of speech, then why is it then that you don't have freedom of speech until you start talking the truth? Why does freedom of speech exist when Luke was rapping the filthy lyrics that he was rapping and the gangster rappers, and now they want to put out, oh, it's freedom of speech. Oh, now it's freedom of speech. Oh, long as we saying something that contributes to the mass destruction of the African people, we got freedom of speech. But until we speak up and start saying something that liberate our people, now we no longer have freedom. Now we need to be quiet. Why is it then we told to be quiet, then we start speaking truth? Why is it that you're being told to be quiet by your own people? Huh? Why is it that when you start speaking about these truths that your so-called European friends, they get upset with you, the ones who's supposed to be your friends, and now they don't want to do business with you no more? What happened? What happened to liberty and justice for all? What happened to one nation? Yeah. Uh-huh. What happened to those so-called proud to be African people when you start speaking truth like this? What happened to their business, their handshakes then? Let me tell you something. The truth brings things to the light. And whatsoever is hid in the dark come to the light only by the truth. Because see, a lie keep people covered up. But when you start telling the truth, oh, the cover come off. That's why they don't want you to teach stuff like that. That's why they call it hate teaching, because, you know, they want you to believe the opposite because it keeps you in mental incarceration. They don't want you to know it's love teaching. You can use their platform when it generate them money. But as soon as you start telling the truth, they want to shut you down. It's okay for videos to go viral on these platforms about us doing all type of foolishness. But as soon as you start speaking the truth, they want to shut you down. Hold, wait a minute. Don't touch that dial. Don't touch that button. Hold, wait a minute. Freedom of speech. Wait a minute now. Don't touch that dial, family. You say you want the truth. Hold on now. Wait a minute. No, don't tune out now. It's getting hot up in here, huh? It's getting hot for these spiritual and religious people now, huh? Because the last time I checked, the Honorable Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached the gospel, but yet he still preached freedom. And he still spoke out against those things that was wrong. And did he not ask the question? Did he not and ask the question, where is our check? Did he not say that we still deserve a check? Yeah. Check your history on that message too. Did he not say it was unjust to tell a man to pull himself up by their bootstraps when they don't have any boots? Didn't he say that? Let me tell you something, family, and I'm ending here. I want y'all, for those of you who know the Bible, I want you to go read the story about Moses, and I guarantee you see it in a different light this time around. What did the house of Israel say to Moses when Moses came and he said, I come to set you free? The Most High sent me to set you free. And Pharaoh, he made their load even harder. He put more pressure on them. He gave them more work. And instead of them fighting against the enemy, they fought against the one that was sent to liberate them and said, Moses, what you come here to do? To kill us? They rose up against Moses because Pharaoh took it out on them, because Moses rebelled and went against the power that he had over enslaving the house of Israel. And so what he did was he put more pressure on the people. Okay, I'm going to make your burden, I'm going to make it even heavier. So you won't even think twice about fighting against me. What am I saying? I guarantee you some of you won't get those grants no more. You start talking like this. I guarantee you won't have as much support anymore when you start talking like this. I guarantee you your friends numbers start going down and your subscribers go down and your followers go down when you start talking like this. I guarantee you some of you will get blocked like I did before numerous times when you start talking like this. You can block me time and time and time again. And just like history shows us, there's still going to be another one. Even if you silence me, there's still going to be another one. Like the Honorable Fred Hampton said, you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't stop the revolution. I'm going to say it again. You can kill the revolutionary, but you can't stop the spirit of the revolution. Because every generation is always one of us that rise, and just like the blood, according to the Bible story of Abel that cried out from the earth, there's a mouthpiece in the spirit of the ancestors that rise up in the earth and cries out in this wilderness and say, let my people go. Peace, love, and power. Thank you all for tuning in.